Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Legend of Korra Book 4 Balance episode commentary. This one's going to be for K405, Enemy at the Gates, episode 5 of Book 4 Balance. To sync up your copy of the episode with this commentary track, what you need to do is have the episode ready to start with the intro of every episode of Korra. So Kyoshi will appear on screen first, and you'll get the earth, fire, air, water bits. Then I'm going to stop speaking now in a moment, and then when I come back after that pause, you hit play, I'll hit play, and we'll both be synced up. So I'm going to stop speaking now, press play when I speak again after the pause. Okay, so here we are with K405, Enemy at the Gates. I'll say it straight away going into this episode. The episode of Book 4 I remember the least about, and that going into it now, having not watched it in a while, I honestly don't remember a lot about what exactly happens in this episode. Obviously, it's Kuvira turning her attention to Zhaofu, but other than that, what exactly happens in this episode, I'm not entirely sure. Because does Korra arrive back in this episode and reunites with Suyin? I'm not really sure. Or are they en route and we get some of that towards the end of the episode? I'm actually starting to come back to me. This is the episode that ends with a big cliffhanger of, oh no, Suyin's gone off to take out Kuvira. She's going to ruin everything now. And then you kind of have Korra being more willing and open to talk to Kuvira. So there's some interesting stuff in this one for sure. But yeah. Attentions turn to Zhaofu, who are kind of this almost independent state. They really represent what, in many ways, Zahir was about. You know, Suyin also doesn't agree with the idea of queens, so, you know, ultimately Wu's decision that he makes towards the end of the book is kind of perfect for Zhaofu, in that they want to be this place of their own, and that's exactly what happens to them. Whereas Kuvira disagrees with queens, but clearly agrees with the idea of an emperor, which isn't great. But yeah, I think this is also the episode that addresses the reasons and like how Kuvira left Zhaofu with Batar. I think like there's a really big thing going on with Batar and his father and that whole issue. But it's such a not a focus of this book. It's a bit of a problem because there's potential there with this guy, and that Book 4 is the book where he is doing the most, and they just don't address it too much. But yep, Korra is ready to confront Kuvira. Kuvira. And Milo's all like, it's gonna be an amazing fight, but Korra's like, no, we're gonna do things right, you know. Kuvira saved my dad, she can be reasoned with. Milo doing some pretty funny stuff, as ever. But again, not in the book too much. I will say maybe Book 4 has a little bit too much Varric. I like the Varric-Julie stuff with the relationship setup, but they do go a bit much overboard with like the amount of time they devote to it, and they don't devote to other things. But I appreciate the setup for the Spirit Vine stuff, that this is the first big experiment on it, and it really gets across the destructive power that this stuff has when harnessed in the wrong way. It's planned as kind of just an energy source, but it eventually becomes a weapon over time. So it's clearly notable because this is basically the same type of blast that Unavatu used at the end of Book 2. It's the same type of blast that kind of Spirit Korra used in that fight against Unavatu. So that's cool. Also, Varric naming units of energy after himself, and Julie as well, so that's notable. But yeah, goes out of control, can't be shut down, dangerous, and he wants to quit on the project immediately, which I actually really like. And that I think everyone thought that Varric was just going to be, oh, he's back to Book 2 Varric, where he's doing some evil stuff again, but thankfully he realizes and kind of has a bit of a heart here, realizes that no one should have this sort of power, and purposefully doesn't want to do it. And again, Julie getting to talk a bit more, always nice to see. And here's the setup for the romance. And I don't think it's a thing where, like, a lot of people, I don't really remember people shipping them too much in, like, book 2 or 3. But the second that this scene happened, everyone was just like, yes, 100% yes, make it happen now, please. So, I suppose in the end they did a good job in that. Though they needed to give some time to them, I suppose, to actually get that across, which may explain why they have such bigger roles in this book compared to all of the others. Varric has no idea what's actually happening here. Oh my god, it's my conscience! Feelings on the inside. Concerned with others, yeah. Because he's never thought about this really before, but now he's starting to believe, like, whoa, this is crazy. And he disagrees with Kuvira, and she clearly just gets straight into business. Like, she shows her evil side to Varric. Again, Boleyn's still not seeing this just yet. I believe this is the episode where Boleyn also kind of turns on Kuvira. I think towards the end, yeah. So, or does it happen in the next episode? Again, it's one of those things where, like, I like book 4, but there's sort of stuff just in the middle that I just kind of like, I wish they devoted this time to something else. And how could I forget about this scene as well? You know, Sami and Hiroshi reunion. This was a bit of a surprise, but I think it's something that has been set up in the past 3 books. Sami's only real story to herself in the entire show has been in book 1, and that was mainly turning on her father and choosing her friends over her father because she fundamentally disagreed with him. And she has mentioned him in book 2 and 3, mentioning that Hiroshi taught her how to play Paisho in book 3, and mentioning that she doesn't want to go see Mako in prison because her father's in prison also, and it would remind her too much. So she's clearly thinking about her father a lot, and he's been thinking about her and has kind of reformed in prison, and he kind of has come to realize that, you know, the most important thing now is just this relationship with my last family member more than anything else. And she's not quite ready to forgive him yet, but she kind of wants to at the same time. It's actually quite well done, even though they only have like 3 or 4 scenes together in the entire book. It makes a nice kind of bookmark over the kind of season for Asami, over the series, I mean, for Asami, in terms of Hiroshi is her first arc and her last arc in the series. And Kuvira using Boleyn to kind of get in good with Su Yin, seeing as Boleyn's dating Su Yin's daughter and stuff like that. So you can see exactly the type of character that Kuvira is. And again, flashlights flashing in Boleyn's head here about, oh, we're invading Zaofu, kind of. She's not saying we're invading and wants me to negotiate. This isn't going very well. And Opal's, of course, there. And he doesn't see that the thing about sides here, that Kuvira is here to take Zaofu and make it part of the Earth Empire. And why did you bring your army? Oh, we did it to show you how great we are and how leaving was a good thing for us. That line there goes nowhere. There's something there between the two of them, that he's felt like he lives in his father's shadow because they're fundamentally very similar characters. You know, same name. You know, Batar Jr. They have the same sort of a role in terms of that inventor, architect type of thing. So and they just didn't do anything with it. They had a chance, but they still didn't do it. So I'm not really sure what they were kind of planning there. I assume remembrances being what it was meant that this had to happen, that it was set up but didn't really go anywhere. And again, Boleyn showing the good side of what they're doing, but completely ignoring the stuff that he doesn't know about. he leaves with them every time, so he doesn't know what happens after a few weeks or something like that. And Suyin sees straight through what Kuvira has done, bringing him in here. She's not annoyed at Bolin because she clearly knows he's only been shown the good side of this organization, and so isn't angry at him in the same way that Opal is. So I kind of like that they didn't all just gang up on Bolin. But you do see with Opal, Wei, and Wing that they especially kind of go like, "What are you doing, Bolin? You're on the wrong side." And yeah, everyone's starting to come back together. You know, we're not quite at reunion just yet in terms of Korra's return to Republic City, but still some important stuff here. A lot of reunions of like people seeing Korra for the first time in 3 years. And he's just like, "Hey, you're just bluffing about that." Nope. And he's just after, like, basically saying, like, "I put my promise to you that we haven't done anything bad," and then he's realizing, like, just after this conversation that, oh, we have done bad things. What Opal was talking about, are they true? And only now it's starting to come out, and she can't really lie to him here properly. And she's just like, "Okay, you're in the inner circle now, I'm going to tell you all the truth." And the second he tries to back out, she shows her kind of bad side to him, and he realizes he needs to get out at the same moment that Varric realizes he needs to get out. So, it's an interesting dynamic that she does have. She tries really hard to keep the bad stuff from these people, but in the end can't control them enough to actually keep it from them forever. Re-education camps are not what they what he thinks they are. And he says he's loyal, but is he? Not really sure. And here's where we get the backstory, you know. Took her in, she was an orphan, trained her, taught her most of her ideals, and it's just this disagreement. Like, I think it says a lot that I find this episode to be one of the least memorable episodes of Book 4, despite it being the episode where you basically have the backstory that turned Kuvira into a villain. And I think that really shows how they kind of missed the point a little bit here. They didn't show the steps that actually took. They just showed the one moment that started the idea. They don't really show a full kind of villain turn, really. Like, there's this disagreement that happens here over about should Zhao help or not, and clearly Kuvira has loftier ideals than Suyin, and isn't thinking so much about, you know, public opinion on what we need to do. But Suyin disagreeing with Kuvira here turns Kuvira into a villain that is willing to become like an emperor and like take over the whole nation. I just don't buy it. And then the whole, you know, Kuvira turned Vitar against Suyin thing just isn't touched on at all. Like at all. Like, how did those two come together? Like, that's the sort of stuff you need to show. What is she? Does she actually care about him or not? Not really addressed too much. There's just a lot of stuff not quite there with Kuvira, even though at a base level I think she's one of the more interesting characters. So that's why I always say, like, I think the book 1 and 2 villains are a lot better than the book 3 and 4 villains. Just because book 3 and 4 suffer the most from just not giving us the required amount of information on the villains to really get them across as like, ooh, these are really interesting. We learn a lot about Unlock, we learn a lot about Amon in his past, but with like the Red Lotus and with Kuvira, not so much. The problem with the book 3 villains is that they don't say anything at all. the problem with Kavira is they don't quite say enough. They just about save it at the end with the core Kavira talk in like the last episode, but it doesn't quite go there. But we see Suyin kind of trying to influence Korra here, saying, go into the Avatar state, take her out, end this, and Korra just wanting to basically, talk to Kavira after what she's learned. And I like this scene here. It's short. Asami just realizing what she's missing in kind of holding this grudge against Hiroshi. She's missing that father-daughter relationship and is willing to give it a chance from here on out. So, pretty nice setup, even though, as I said, they only get a couple of scenes, and it is one of the really, really, really low-priority arcs in the entire show. And here, Bolin, I like that they keep this thing going, that Varric and Bolin have this kind of connection. They are friends, and they both come to the same realization in the same episode that they need to get out of here quick. And it kind of is the start of Bolin's kind of redemption arc, that they need to redeem themselves. Well, Bolin does, especially, to Opal. And here, Korra and Kavira speak for the first time, really. Just a standard hero-villain kind of fare so far. Just, back then, nope. And then, Kavira's point here is just kind of like, I was tasked by the entire world to bring stability to the Earth Kingdom, so that requires me to get everywhere, including the one place that doesn't need stability because it's already stable just on its own, which proves the point that an empire doesn't really work because certain places can work perfectly fine on their own, and places like Yai are perfectly fine on their own as well. And then she kind of reverses around. Korra's almost being too open to Kavira's ideas here. She's trying too hard to kind of see what Kavira is about and not be confrontational, not take her out. Whereas, like in other books, she just was just like, okay, you're being villainous. I can see your point, but you're taking it too far. She doesn't push the point here with Kavira until she absolutely has to. But still, interesting dynamic going on in this episode, and it just says a lot that it is maybe not the best episode in the book, because there's a lot of good stuff that actually happens in this episode, including this kind of awesome mech suit fight. Batar and two guys against Julie, Varric, and Bolin in mech suits, and then Bolin switches to lava bending later on. It's pretty cool. It's probably the only real proper non-bender fight we get in the book that doesn't just involve bending, even though Bolin includes a bit at the end. Varric made the suits and he can't use them himself, which doesn't make a massive amount of sense in that clearly he designed them with a lot of features in mind, and to design those features he would have to make them usable, unless he's just not coordinated or something like that. So immediately Bolin abandons the mech suit and just okay, lava bending, earth bending. And the mech suit's a lot more agile, a lot more options for them, so you can see how much the design is improved, which is interesting. And then Julie is just amazing in the mech suit defending Varric, but he makes a mistake. It just really shows how much Bolin has grown. Think about Bolin in episode 1, and then think about him in this episode. Taking on three mech suits on his own, basically at one point in this fight with lava bending. He really has grown a lot in terms of becoming a more kind of heroic character who can really defend himself, defend other people, and just a really strong fighter as well. And here, I think yeah, switches to lava bending. Here, just really great animation on the lava bending. Looks so cool. Immediately takes out two suits. And Bachar has Varric. And here we have the third Korra, not Korra, Asami and Hiroshi scene. And, it's this idea that, will she ever forgive him? And, they kind of almost reference, Southern Raiders type thing. Like, Aang asked Katara to forgive Yonra for what he did, but she says at the end, I can never forgive you, but I can forgive you, Zuko. In this episode, they kind of go the opposite road and go, I don't know if I can forgive you, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try to forgive you. I'm going to open this kind of dialogue up and try, because this is important, and it just works completely, and especially with what they do with it later. Yes, you could say maybe you wish you had more scenes, but clearly they were strapped for time a lot in this book. They did what they could, and it comes across pretty well. Kuvira needs Varric, but is just sending the other two away. And here we get Zhu Li's big betrayal, which was a big point when this actually happened, when the episode first aired, in terms of the fandom. Like, was she actually betraying him, or was it a kind of undercover thing? I think most people thought it was kind of saw through it and that she didn't actually turn sides, but they were wondering what exactly she was doing. Was she working for someone else? Was she just going off on her own? And stuff like that. Is there something that Varric doesn't know about Zhu Li? Are we going to get her backstory? But instead we just go, okay, she gets closer to Kuvira to try and take her out from kind of closer in, and her betrayal of Varric was the most obvious way to do that. And ultimately it makes for a pretty interesting approach to the whole Varric-Zhu Li relationship, in that there is this kind of, not quite breakup moment, but moment where the two are separated as characters and they become more unique, because usually they're seen as like this duo, Varric and Zhu Li, but Zhu Li actually does some interesting stuff on her own. Varric gets a chance to be on his own, and together it makes them both more interesting. And here's the big cliffhanger I mentioned at the start of the episode. Su Yin has gone off to take out Kuvira, and Korra's doing the whole peace talk thing, and Su has just gone off with Wayne Wing to take her out, and that kind of messed up the peace talk. So interesting, again, the whole Su Yin Kuvira relationship isn't even explored that well, in that, she is technically, you see her as basically a daughter, and you're going to kill her now. Bit hard to kind of buy. Again, the explanation just seemed a little bit like lackluster for what they were really going for how far Kuvira actually changes. But decent, and in the end, like, actually an episode where a lot of stuff happens. Like this, there's a lot of things that really happen in this episode, and I'd say it's actually a pretty important episode. But again, it doesn't quite nail all of the important things that it needs to nail quite as good as you would maybe expect. So solid episode, not the best, but we'll move on probably tomorrow to the commentary for K406, Battle 4 or of Zaofu. I'll have to check up which it's called, but either way, episode 6 commentary tomorrow. So thanks for listening, and bye.